Captain's Log, the film I'm reviewing today, is based on a classic Hanna-Barbera cartoon. It's set somewhere far, somewhere distant. That's right, space itself. So, in preparation for this review, I'm going into space myself. That's right. 3, 2, 1, blast off!
Ah! Jane, stop this crazy thing!
Jetsons the movie is an animated, feature-length sci-fi comedy. Set in the distant future, the film follows a suburban family as they move to a new home. After father and husband, George Jetson is promoted to being vice president at a Spacely Sprockets plantation. While in their new home, a state-of-the-art garden estate, George has trouble running things at the plantation, Judy misses her boyfriend, and Elroy develops a sports rivalry with a robot boy. Meanwhile, cute little creatures called grungies are trying to survive under the plantation, and it's up to George to save them. Before I state my opinions on this movie, I must remind you that I'm reviewing Jetsons the movie, not Jetsons the TV show. All my comments are directed to what the film itself offers as a separate product. I think that this is a relatively uneventful and sometimes repetitive film. One scene happens twice in a row, I'm not even kidding. George pushes a button and the machine breaks. His boss yells at him, cut to the grunges disrupting the machines at night, rinse and repeat. If you're going to establish that the same problem is carrying on, then at least add a twist to the second time it occurs. I don't want a case of deja vu, that's boring. It feels like most of the film is just padding and filler. What happens in the narrative can only be described as stuff because of the lack of high conflict. It's not exactly exciting or engaging for most of the time. It's only when we meet the grungies that the story really kicks in. That shouldn't be the case. A film is supposed to be enthralling all the way through. To be honest, what I strongly dislike the most about this film is how it tries very hard to make us feel sorry for Judy after she's missed out on a date with her boyfriend, a rock star that picked her up at his concert. Here's the thing, she barely knew him at all, so I cannot feel sympathetic one bit. There was zero chemistry between them both and they had only 1 minute of screen time together, or less. Why should I care? Huh? You could argue that the film is asking us to feel sorry for her because she's lonely or disappointed that she missed out on her date, but we don't know what her love life was like before this happened. Was she unlucky with guys? Did she have any chance at dates before? I have no idea, so it doesn't seem like a last straw reaction. Seeing her get upset over one missed date with a complete stranger is kind of melodramatic to me. There's no need for it. And think about this, the idea of a rock star picking up a fan at his concert is a bit sleazy, which further propels my lack of sympathy for her. The relationship she develops with an alien called Apollo, who she meets in her new hometown, seems a bit rushed. I mean, they hold hands by the second scene that they're in together. Then, the following song announces that they're in love. What? Huh? Develop a relationship before you announce the idea of romantic love between your characters. I need to be convinced as an audience member that Judy and Apollo have genuinely developed a romantic relationship before you start announcing things like this. This can be done easily through gradual bonding. It's what humans do in order to draw closer together. Romantic love doesn't happen over a day. It's a long process that's based on a tight emotional connection. Anything less just seems like a crush or infatuation to me. Sure, teenagers do mistake infatuation for love, but it feels like the film is treating it like genuine romance through its songs and imagery. When you throw a romantic love song over a scene, you are implying something, you know. It implies that the relationship on screen that's been spliced with this song is something deep and meaningful. I don't think this can be applied to what's between Judy and Apollo, because of the lack of chemistry. They've just met each other, things have just started. However, I do like the cute subplot that focuses on Elroy's friendship with a robot boy. At first they're sports rivals, but when Elroy saves the robot boy from flying sprockets, a sweet friendship begins. In fact, the friendship between these two is far more convincing than the romantic relationship between Judy and Apollo. This is because, unlike Judy and Apollo, the scenes shared between these two boys are far more natural, slower paced, and contain emotional conflict. Sure, it's nothing complex or deep, but it's certainly a step up from the contrived romance in the film. What about the characters? Well, I don't mind George. He's happy-go-lucky and cheery, while also being ditzy, goofy, and clumsy, without being obnoxious. I love how much warm pride he feels from being vice president. He feels a certain responsibility and wants to do his best even though his job is to simply push a button. However, he's not entirely pleasant. He has a selfish side to him because he shows little respect for his family. This proves that he's not perfect. It gives a flawed edge to his character, which makes him interesting. I really don't like Judy Jetson in this film. She's obnoxious, selfish, and melodramatic. The teenage drama queen character can be funny though, when written with charisma and wit. But Judy isn't funny, she's just annoying. I like Elroy though. He's sweet and kind, but acts like any other little boy, so he's not sickly sweet. He gets emotions that any other child his age would, like annoyance or anger. He's not a smiley-faced saint, that's what I mean. Jane Jetson gets little screen time for most of the movie, but she does get to shine towards the end. She becomes responsible for convincing George to shut down the plan to protect the grungy city. It's at this point of the film that we see some stern courage in Jane. She's not afraid to stand up to her husband. I like that. It shows that she has backbone. Mr. Spacely is technically the film's antagonist, but spends most of the movie travelling on a cheap transportation service. However, when he finally arrives at the Sprocket plantation, we see him doing everything he can to keep production going. His selfish determination is enough to make your blood boil. Ugh, what a dick. Apollo is an extremely bland character. Yes, he looks kind of cool, but he has nothing distinct about him except for the fact that he plays a guitar. But guess what? That doesn't tell me enough about him. I need to know about his character traits, beliefs, opinions, or personality. His lack of charisma makes me care even less about his relationship with Judy. The grungies are not only insanely adorable, but they're also kind of funny. There's something cheeky about them, and the way they walk is so cute and hilarious. They walk like little giddy babies. However, they're not just on screen to look cuddly, they're actually tough little buggers, and have the strength to rescue Elroy when he's covered in rubble, plus tie up George. Now, the animation itself of the film is often active and elastic, but sometimes it can be a bit crude. However, it's certainly a step up from any Hanna-Barbera cartoon produced in the 60s or 70s. They were known for making cartoons with looped and cheap animation back then. Now, what about the voice acting? Well, it's a film packed with some top veterans, but unfortunately two of them, Mel Blanc, the voice of Mr. Spacely, and George O'Hanlon, the voice of George Jetson, sadly died during production. So, renowned voice actor Jeff Bergman took over them, and if I'm frank, Bergman does an excellent job. I have to admit that I couldn't even tell where Bergman replaces George and Mr. Spacely in some scenes. That's impressive. When pop star Tiffany was brought into the project, she replaced Judy's original voice actress, Janet Waldo. This was a shallow casting decision to me. It was only made to draw in a bigger crowd at the cinema because Tiffany was so famous at the time of production. I think Tiffany's voice for Judy is whiny and squealy. Sure, that's due to the writing of the character mainly, but Tiffany isn't that impressive as a voice actress. There's not much character to her delivery. The decision to replace an iconic voice actress like Janet Waldo was a mistake to me. The film's soundtrack opens up with the famous, grand, jazzy theme. Then the rest of the score steps in, and it becomes unnoticeable. I mean, it's not bad music for the score, trust me. I've listened to the soundtrack album and have to admit it's fantastically composed, but I just didn't notice it while I was watching the film. I guess that's a compliment because it implies that it's not a distraction. As for the songs, well, there's a cringy little rap number, but luckily it passes by because it's so brief. There's a few solo songs by Judy. The first one I loathe due to its intention. It's supposed to be trying to ask the audience to feel sorry for Judy about missing out on her date with a rock star, but as I said before, the relationship between the two was really paper thin, so I think the whole song is a bit pointless considering the tediousness of the situation. A song like this is only provoking when a character has been through a serious breakup with a long-term relationship or something along those lines. Then there's another song, performed by Judy, that's meant to be about the apparent so-called love between her and Apollo, which of course makes no sense to me because I'm not convinced that she's in love with Apollo, for real. You can tell that the songs sung by Judy in the film were all shoehorned in as an excuse to use Tiffany's singing voice. The musical numbers look more like music videos than something designed to elevate the story or develop characters. Sure, the music videos look creative and fancy, but they often seem extremely irrelevant to the Jetsons universe. I mean, when Beavis and Butthead Do America featured a shoehorned music video, at least it contained elements and aesthetics of the characters themselves by being dirty, grungy, and rebellious. It's obvious that the use of Tiffany's singing and songs is just a way to sell her records or promote her career, rather than a way of being a valuable tool to help the story move along. Tiffany's singing voice is decent, yes, I like it, but if she's going to sing in the film, then she might as well sing about something worthwhile, rather than about Judy's angst over missing out on a date with a guy she hardly knew, or about a contrived romance with a guy she's just met. To conclude, this is a very plain, boring, and bland movie. It's muddled, forgettable. It's riddled with problems, the main issues being its underdeveloped romantic subplot and unnecessary contributions by a famous pop star. However, the film does showcase some of the most talented veteran voice actors to ever grace animation. The grunges are kind of cute and fun too. In addition, the sweet friendship between Elroy and the robot boy is enjoyable. I give it 2.5 futuristic stars out of 5.